Hey guys, this is NUSensei. A lot of people have asked me, what bow do you use? And I've answered this question tons of times. I've actually mentioned my bow many times, and I've gone through my entire setup at least once in a video. But I want to make this video to go through not only my current equipment, but also everything I've bought up to this point. And what I hope to achieve from doing this is to show what a typical progression might be. And I understand that when you buy a bow in archery, it's very likely that if you stick with the sport, then you are going to buy more than one bow. You're going to buy more than one set of arrows. So if you're not really sure when or what you should be buying, hopefully this video will give you more of an insight as to how I progressed in my archery career. For context, I started archery by doing the come and try sessions at the local club, and that's where I shot the typical takedown recurve bows, 18 to 30 pounds, and for that reason, I didn't buy an entry-level recurve bow. I went straight to a target recurve, and that may be different from how many of you started doing archery. Unlike most people, I never actually bought a bow in store in person. I bought a kit after researching everything I needed. I bought a relatively cheap kit, and my purpose was to add things to this kit as I thought I needed it. So it was a very slow progression, but I never bought a bow in person. My first bow was a Samick Angler. If you see my older videos, you may have seen me hold it. It's the red and silver metal riser. I bought the package from Pat's Archery nearly 5 years ago. The package came with 34-pound KS Stallion limbs, a Cartel K-sight, Cartel long rod stabilizer, a Cartel triple plunger, and a Dacron bowstring. As trivia, the 34-pound KS Stallion limbs were the only piece of equipment I still had until very recently. I sold that to a fellow club member, but I've had those limbs ever since I started, up to very recently. Now, after a few months, I added more stuff to this kit. I did add a full stabilizer set, so apart from the long rod, I got a Cartel extender, 2 Cartel side rods, and a Cartel V-bar. The Samick Angler package cost around 700 Australian dollars. I chose the Angler because my information was actually outdated. I was looking at different technical guides, and the Angler was mentioned a few times, so I recognized the name when I was shopping around. The Angler itself is quite an old bow, and even when I bought it 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite hard to find, so it probably wasn't the best bow in the market at the time. It's one of the lower end ones. And it probably filled the same role as the SF Axiom today. So it wasn't a great bow, but at the time I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest into archery, both in time and money. So it was a relatively cost-efficient method of seeing if I enjoyed the sport. Ultimately, the quality of the bow was a bit of a letdown. I outgrew it within months, and while it got me started, it didn't sustain me for more than 3 or 4 months. After around 8 months, I swapped out the Samick Angler for the Win Inno CXT. This is my second and current riser as of now. I bought this riser because I knew this was quality. I knew that professionals used it and still do, and it handles marvelously. Between Hoyt and Win, I chose Win because Hoyt was a little more mainstream, and I liked the look of the Win a lot more. Performance-wise, I can't really compare and fault either, but I like the look and feel of the Win more, so this remains my current choice. After a couple of months, I then changed the 34-pound KS Stallion limbs to the 40-pound Win Inno EX powers. This was my choice for a final set of limbs. I didn't really plan to go past 40 pound, and as you know, I actually shoot around 34 pound on the fingers. It might change in the future, but I was happy to invest in a long-term set of limbs. In hindsight, I think I moved up a bit too soon. I think I wasn't quite ready to handle the extra weight at the time. The 6 pound difference is not impossible. It's actually quite easy to move up 5 or 6 pounds at a time, but I was probably doing it too soon. So that did kind of slow me down for a bit. The Cartel K sight served its purpose. It was a bit too fidgety and rattled too much, so I was quite happy to move on to the Shibuya Ultima recurve sight. I also added Cartel rubber dampeners to my stabilizers. I no longer have them, but I still have this one dampener on my short rod on my riser. Eventually, I replaced all my Cartel stabilizers with the full Doinka set. These are the most expensive ones, the Doinka Platinum High mods. I also have the Doinka adjustable V-bar and the Doinka suppressor extension mount. Now, I admit this was a luxury buy. I bought it because it was expensive and I had the money, and look, the suppressor just looks good. With my Samak Agla, I use a Dacron bowstring. I soon replaced that with a fast fight string. I initially used the factory made ones like Cartel and Win and Win. I then got a shop to make me a fast fight string for my Win and Win bow. And of course nowadays I make my own strings from BCY 8125G. I've used 3 plunges throughout the years. I started with a Cartel triple plunger, I moved to a Win and Win plunger, and currently I use the Biter plunger. For arrow rest, I've had a bit of bad luck. I started with the Cartel Expert rest. I then tried the Win and Win rest, but that actually snapped after about 5 shots. I moved on to the Shibuya Ultima rest, and that unfortunately came flying off because I didn't stick it on properly. I then used the Hoyt Super Rest for a long time, until a point where 2 arms broke within a week. So I've gone back to using the Shibuya Ultima as my rest, and I use the Hoyt Super Rest as my spares. More recently, I replaced the aperture on my Shibuya sight with the Titan recurve sight ring. So to recap my current setup, I use a Win and Win Inno CXT riser 25 inch, medium Win and Win Inno EX Power limbs 40 pound, a Shibuya Ultima sight, a Doinka Platinum High Mod stabilizer set with Doinka adjustable V-bar and suppression extender mount. I use BCY 8125G bowstrings, a Cartel Midas mini stabilizer, a Biter plunger, a Shibuya Ultima recurve rest, and a Titan recurve sight. I've been through 3 different arrow shafts in my career. My original kit came with the Eastern Jazz 1916s. These were a little too stiff for me, so I moved over to the Eastern Blues. I think these were 1516s. When I bought my 40-pound limbs, I switched back to the 1916s temporarily, and then moved on to the Eastern ACEs. My first ones were, I think, 630s. They were a bit too stiff, so I moved on to the 720s, which are currently my arrow. With my aluminium arrows, I used the plastic fletch range, which came from the shop. I then moved on to spin wings for my ACEs, and I currently use XS wings. The nock is an Eastern large nock with a pin, and I use a 100 grain point. The wrap is a pattern called Chinese Garden, which is made by customarrowwraps.com. I've been through quite a few finger tabs. It was the first thing I replaced on my kit. I started with the Fimic Soma. I replaced it with the AAE Cavalier Ultra Light. I used the Win and Win 360, tried the KSL Gold tab, went back to the Win and Win 360, and now I use the Win and Win We Are with Easy R. I've been through 3 quivers. The first one came with my kit. It was a very flimsy Fivik Soma. I then bought a Hoyt quiver, and once that fell apart, I chose the Eastern QF 100. The chest guard I use is the Win and Win Weecourse. I've used 3 different arm guards. I used the Fivik's leather arm guard, which came with my set. I then used the Eastern bone shape arm guard, and currently I use the Biter arm guard. When I first started, my coach taught me to use a wrist sling made from paracord. I currently use finger slings. I've tried the butterfly design commercial finger slings, and currently I use a shoelace. As far as future purchases are concerned, I've pretty much maxed out my bow. I can't really buy anything better. I can buy newer things, but not really better things. So I don't intend on moving up in draw weight anytime soon, so I'm not going to change my limbs. My riser is completely functional and it's beautiful. So unless someone offers to send me a new riser, hint hint, win and win, I'm probably not going to change. One thing I'm likely to buy at one stage would be Eastern X10s. I am running low on ACEs. I would like a heavier duty target arrow, so the X10s may be complementing my ACEs in the near future. That should cover most of the equipment I use. I of course do have a lot of other accessories which I haven't mentioned, but if you want to find out about other things, feel free to ask. I would like to note that everything I have, I've bought myself. I haven't received any things from sponsorship or endorsements, so I'm not trying to advertise these products. It's simply what I use and what I've picked up over the years. Anyway, this is NUSensei. I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.